bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Take a step back to see the truth around you. From a distance you can tell. to be in the great outdoors, forever free. You and me, meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.
Greetings, glitter goddesses. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to all of you. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, January 16th. And it's time to do some more work on the Split Decision album, which will, oh my gosh, be done this month? Question mark? Hopefully. Please. Please, universe. Please let me finish this album. All right. So, good afternoon to all of you. Donna Jet was the first to chat, or the first to chat where it didn't disappear because it like aged out. And then Leanne, how are you? Glad you can be here today as well. Hi, Bev. Priya, welcome. Greetings to Cindy and Barbara Jean. Oh, Barbara Jean has missed some of the class today. That is always allowed. That's always allowed. We do not have crafting police that we send out. Hello, Kimberly. How are you? Bubs, hi. Candy, greetings. I hope you're not freezing. I hope no one is freezing, although I do understand that it's January. Greetings, Carol. How are you? Scrap and share. Joyce, hello. Oh, hi, Skinny Cat. Happy day to you too. Greetings, Gretchen. Gretchen's getting her car inspected, so everyone send positive energy that goes well. Oh my gosh. Speaking of cars, I have to get my airbag replaced because I'm part of the Takata airbag recall. So we're doing that on Monday. We thought, well, maybe we'll just get like Toyota's 120,000 mile, whatever, while we're there, because the car also needs an oil change. And we don't drive it that much. So, and it's like $600. And I was like, why the heck is it $600? And they replace all the spark plugs. And I'm like, how often do spark plugs need to be replaced? Like, is that a thing? And so I looked, and you're supposed to replace those every 30,000 miles. We're on our original spark plugs. So I have no idea, like, what is happening to the engine. My apologies, car. I didn't know that. Yeah. All right, so we are on the last of envelope E. This is the last envelope E, the third one. And last week we did the large folder. And so now we need to do if we're going to work our way down in size, we're going to do the quad folio. So the question is, do we want to do where we decorate it on the back like we did with the first quad folio, or do we just want to make another quad folio and slap that other quad folio on the back of this quad folio so it becomes an octafolio? So if you want to decorate the back, type a 1 in the chat, and if you want to make an octafolio, type a 2 in the chat. Type a 2 in the chat. And I guess, what am I gonna do? I guess I'll just wait. So I finished Cinder, which is the January book club book. I have thoughts, of course. I'll save most of my thoughts for the last show of the month, so as not to spoil anyone. But Margaret and Mini Waterfalls, I'm gonna that's a good idea to you as a thing that you could put in the pocket, but there's already so much in the pocket that the pocket's already pretty thick, so I don't think we can add that extra thickness to this pocket. But if that was the only thing you put in a pocket, I think it would be doable. All right, so you'll be done with Cinder today. All right, so what is this? 8 1/4 by 9. All right, 8 1/4 by 9. 8 1/4 by 9. Yeah, it would be too fluffy, but it's a great idea, just not for this particular pocket with the inserts that this pocket already has. All right, it's a tie, so I'm gonna make another, I'll just decorate it. I'll just decorate it. All right, so the way that I'm going to decorate it is I'm going to just start by peeling the tape off the back and setting that piece of cream cardstock on it, and then we'll go from there. We'll just see what happens. So I finished Cinder. Like I set the goal to read 48 books in 2020, but it's not just any 48 books. I gave myself some, I don't know if I want to call them challenges or like rules or caveats, because I mean, I can do whatever I want. Ultimately, I don't have to abide by this. It's just a goal that I set for myself. But the rules that I have kind of given myself are that the reason I peeled the tape and then I have this sitting on my desk is so that I can just sort of drop this down onto it, and I know that the quad folio won't be distorted. Whereas if I try to hold the quad folio and press the quad folio into this piece, you know, because it's a little flimsier, it can stretch in ways that I don't want it to stretch. So that's why I do it this way, even though it wastes a little bit of cardstock. But cardstock is not the most expensive supply in crafting, so it's okay. It's okay. So the rules, now I'm going to use a ruler to trim the sides, a ruler and my rotary trimmer. And so the rules that I set for myself were, the book either had to be challenging in some way, meaning something I wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards reading for one reason or another, either because of the ideas or the type of book it was or whatever, the writing, the language, whatever. Or I had to already own it. So it had to be a book that I already owned. And so the first 2 books that I read were Children of Blood and Bone by Tony Adeyemi and Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and those fit the bill because I already owned them. And now I'm reading, oh, and I couldn't spend any money on this project. That was the other thing. So if I wanted to read a challenging book, I either had to already own, I had to already own it, or find some other way to get it for free. So I'm almost done with, in fact, a book that is challenging because just people say it's very challenging, which is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, which is not a book I would recommend really at all to I mean, its content is certainly pretty dark, and I don't know if I think the book is good enough, at least in my opinion, to make it worth, that kind of content. The book it reminds me the most of is One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, which it's just the lifetime version of it instead of the day version of it. And One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich is a book about what it's like to live in a gulag during the Soviet Union in Siberia. And the book is, one of the things about the book is that oppression is often boring. You know, there's not something like quote unquote exciting or dramatic happening at every moment. A lot of times it's just boring, you know, and every day is the same, and it creates this like hopelessness peppered by fear, that sort of thing. So that, you know, that things can be bad in a way that just seems like endless, where there's no variation and nothing changes. And so to help you as the reader feel that, the book is boring. The book is incredibly boring because Ivan's life is incredibly boring. And I'm not going to say that A Little Life is boring per se. I'm taking, this is a 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mat, and I'm just going to put it, I'm going to put it in the upper left corner, and I'm going to trace around it lightly with a pencil. And then I'm going to put it in the bottom corner and trace around it lightly with a pencil. And then that will map out where the photo mats have to go, and then I'll know where the paper has to go. Okay. So, anyways, but A Little Life covers someone's entire life in a similar fashion, where it's just the life, you know, that there's stuff that is always going on, that's always a problem, that's always horrible. But it's just, it's just, I don't know what to, yeah. All right. So now I have a couple choices, right? So I can either have one strip of paper that goes all the way across and then 2 blocks of paper here and here. And these I'll just stamp with the photo stamp. Or I can have one strip of paper that goes all the way down the side, and then here just have one smaller strip of paper separating the 2 photo mats. And then the other thing I'll say about the book, if you feel at all inclined to read it after that description, which I can't imagine why you would, is that, you know, I have been moved a few times, and there is a sort of almost like a meme that after you read this book, your life is destroyed and you don't know how to move on, and it takes you a few days to recover. When I went into reading A Little Life, I anticipated that I would not have that experience. And the reason why I anticipated that I would not have that experience is because I worked for a number of years in child abuse prevention, and the main shocker of the book, or the main angst driver of the book, is someone's past child abuse. So, you know, after a certain number of years, of studying that you stop having such an intense emotional reaction to it as people who don't spend all their time thinking about it and talking about it. So from 2003 to 2009, I worked in child abuse prevention, which meant that I spent all day, every day at work, thinking about child abusers and how they operate, and victims of child abuse, and, you know, how to help them. And so just as a self-preservation method, your brain just stops. Your brain stops giving you a traumatic emotional response to that every time. That being said, most people don't have that, I don't know, self-preservation built in when they read this book. So I can see how the book would be incredibly upsetting. Incredibly upsetting. So just bear that in mind as well if you feel inclined to research it. Hi, kitty. So yeah, I don't recommend it, and I am trying to decide if on my good, bad, meh scale, I would give it a meh, or if ultimately I'll give it a bad. You know, I think it's just technically the writing could be better. It's under researched for sure. You know, the author did the research is very poor in a number of areas, from baking to child abuse. So, you know, I'm constantly thrown out of the story by that as well. And it's one of those things where it's like, if the thing that I know about I know is wrong, that I just assume anything I don't know about is also poorly researched. So yeah, so I can understand why people feel emotional about the book. I understand why it's important to people. It's not important to me. So, now I don't have a total heart of stone. I have shed 2 tears and I have been emotional. I've had an emotional response 2 other times, not related to the trauma of the main character, but I'm looking for a piece of paper I can use as a scrap paper. If you're like, that's why I'm off camera. I need one that's going to be big enough to cover this piece, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a quilt. Oh, this is big enough. Hi, kitty. Hi. The book is, on the surface, it's about these, it starts out being about these 4 friendships and what it's like to know a sick person who never gets better. And the parts that are about that, I think, are the strongest parts of the book. But as the book goes on, it ceases being about that and it starts just spiraling in on the main character. So, and that is the part of the book that I find the least moving for reasons I already described to you. Now, like I said, for other people, I can see how that would be an incredibly moving part of the story. And if... All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this to... I'm going to cut this to... Hi. Can you put your face on the camera? This is 8 1/4 by 9, so I'm going to cut this piece of paper to 8 1/4 by 9, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make a quilt to go in this space, and I'm going to cut this shape, so that'll be interesting. I might make it 8 and should I make it 8 and should I just leave it 8 1/2? Yeah, I'm going to leave it 8 1/2, and I'm going to cut it to, I'm going to make it 8 1/2 by 9 1/2, I think. I'll make it a little bit bigger. All right, kitty. I need to have you go party somewhere else, okay? Can you go party somewhere else? I have not read either A Boy Named It or A Child Called It. So yeah, I think the book could have been better balanced as well, with more time spent on their relationships with each other and less time spent on the main character. Okay. Kitty, I need you to move just a 1/4 inch. Okay, good job. Look at you being such a good kitty. Standing right in front of my face. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, okay. So I drew a line 1/8 of an inch in out of the from this edge, and that's where I'm going to start mapping everything out, because that will give me a little bit I can trim. That'll give me a little bit I can trim. Kitty, you're gonna have to go now, okay? I'm trying to explain something. and I need to well, I'm not particularly interested in reading books about child abuse as like a genre. The reason I read this one was because, okay, buddy, okay, all right, just like, okay, there you go, there you go. The reason I read this one was because I was just curious if having it been 10 years since I did this line of work now, if I would have an unexpected reaction, like if time away from the subject matter had changed anything, and it hasn't, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm sorry, kitty. Thank you very much for your assistance. All right, so now it's a 1/2 inch in between the two photos, so I'm just going to mark that. And then I'm going to put this other one. While I was still working in the field, I probably would have found the book even more irritating than I did find it. Because one of the things that you find really irritating working in that field is fictional depictions of child abuse that are so fantastical that they give people bad information about how child abuse works or how it happens. So like, and because if people have the wrong idea, then they can tend to ignore their instincts because what's happening around them doesn't seem like what they've seen. So if you recall the stranger danger thing, I mean, that's really not, that's so rare that happens. It's almost always someone that's known to the family. You know what I mean? So, or it's more likely to be in the family than it is to be a stranger. All right, so now that I've mapped out this, I'm going to, and I have where everything's going to go, I'm going to tape over it, you know, and we're going to do the usual thing that we do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make our 45-degree angle just by folding it. And then we'll flatten it out. And so that's a problem, because it can cause people to ignore their instincts about, you know, if they sense something is off with someone they know, you know, and they don't have an idea that's where the real danger can be, then they ignore those instincts, and then it goes on and on and on and on. So, yeah, it probably would have annoyed me more. I probably would have had less patience. I probably would have not finished it, would be my guess. All right, so I've drawn my 45-degree line that helps me line all my little scraps up. And like, I immediately called the person who replaced me in my position when I left and was like, wait till you hear this. And they were like, stop talking. So like, that's a good indication to me that I would have been like, no thanks. So, all right, so with this, I'm gonna just cover all my pencil lines. So I just wanna make sure all my pencil lines are covered by tape. And then we'll get to putting down scraps. Anyway, it's a downer of a book. I can't stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough. If you don't like to read downer books, don't read it. I'm going to get through it. It's 800 pages, 900 pages, something like that. That's another way in which it's challenging. I'm 85% of the way through, I would say. Something around there. So, not much longer. Not much longer. All right, so because I didn't get all the way to the edge, I'm just going to take a 1/4 inch tape and lay it on top here before we get started with our scraps. I think it would be, Kimberly. There's a huge difference now in what people understand, and also in what organizations can do to make their environments safe. I mean, that's what I did when I worked. Was I helped design programs for, you know, grade schools, high schools, sports programs, daycares, whatever, where they could take steps to, like, really actual concrete steps to prevent abuse, rather than waiting for children, rather than educating the children so that the children would know when to tell someone. We would design programs where we educated the adults to spot early warning signs that an adult was a potential abuser. And what that would do in the long run is it means fewer children are ever abused. And that was what I did. And in order to do that, you have to know how child abusers act. You know, that's the main thing that, you know, you spend your time learning. All right. Okay, so we got our little baggie of scraps, and we're gonna just get to work. Priya says it's interesting how the same book can affect us differently at different stages in our life. I read the book Thief when it first came out, and felt it was a decent book. It's interesting because I have found that the book Thief is a book in particular that people seem to, you know, like less and less over time. All right, so I've started on my line. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move what's left of this piece so that I can put it on the rest of the line. Okay, just like so. And then hopefully this will create a continuous, you know, thread. So it'll look like, oh, hey, you know, this red goes all the way through. I don't know why, but yeah, the longer the book Thief's been out, the less people I see talking about it, like, positively. That doesn't mean that I think people talk about it as in a way that it's like it's bad. I don't think anyone thinks that's a bad book, but yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes when a book first comes out, it's like have you ever watched a movie and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this movie. I'm so amazed, overwhelmed, whatever. And then a few years later, you're like, why did I ever love this movie? What the heck? Because maybe in your first swell of emotion, the flaws are not obvious. All right, so any pieces that are long enough to go all the way through, I'm just going to have them go all the way through. All right, so this piece, I'm going to cut the adhesive off of it. And then if there's still enough of it left after I've cut the adhesive off of it, we'll use it. But so far this year, I've rated 2 books meh. And now I'm, like I said, I'm on the fence as to whether or not to rate the last book meh or bad. And I think I'll ultimately rate it meh, because what I think is bad about it, or what would incline me to rate it bad versus meh or whatever, would be the disinformation aspect of it. And I don't think that's necessarily fair, because books can be fantastical and books can be wrong. You know, I mean, books don't have to reflect reality. And I think for a lot of people, you know, it's more about, oh, does Cinder get a meh? Oh, let me think about that. I don't know. Maybe I'm too hard on books. Maybe that's what we should talk about. Maybe I'm just a jerk who doesn't like to read. I'm very sorry to hear that, Donna. That's terrible. Hi, Tisa. The other thing I need to keep in mind, is, you know, not every book is for me. So, it's a very hard job, Donna. I'm so sorry. That it ever happened and that it was exploited. Yeah, maybe that's what we need to discuss. Whether or not I'm too hard on books and I should just chill. Okay. All right, so we're just continuing, you know, the way that we normally do with this. Well, that's the other thing, is that, you know, just because a book isn't for me doesn't mean it's not for other people. And like I said about A Little Life, I see why some people are so moved by the book and why it's so important to so many people. You know, absolutely. And the book has many positives, which is why I don't think in the end it would be fair to give it a all right, so in this last little bit here, I think I'll fill it in with a little bit of red. You know, you like what you like, and if someone else doesn't like what you like, that doesn't say anything about you or them, really. All right, so we've got the, oh, we need to finish this little corner down here. So I'm just gonna stick this piece in here to finish off the corner. Beautiful. All right, so we've got that stripe, so now we just need to finish this stripe. And it's not going to be difficult because, you know, it's just not much. There were books I know in college, great works of, you know, of human history, and I'm just like, ugh, why is this a great work of, you know, why is this a feat of humanity? Like, so I totally get it. I already told you about Charles Dickens and I, and how we're not exactly tight, to say the least. So, all right, I want this to end on yellow, so that we have a little bit of yellow on this stripe. So I'm just going to take a little corner here. Hello from New Jersey, Jenny. I am working on one of the pages in my Split Decision album, and we're making a very elaborate photo mat, really, is what we're doing, out of scraps. All right, so I'm about to reveal its final form. All right. Thank you. I really enjoy making these little paper quilts. So then thank you for joining us. We're here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern and 9 p.m. Eastern. So twice on Thursdays. All right, now, friends, let's give it the chop. Okay. So now, this is going to be what fills in this, right? So that's what we've made it for. Okay. And so probably the best way for me to do this is to flip it over and map out my piece on the back. Okay. Mapping out my piece on the back. So I'm going to draw that first mark 1/8 of an inch in, just as I did before. And the reason I have to remap this is, you know, just because I'll use a pen so it's easier to see. I have to remap this because I covered up all my original map lines when I put the paper strips on top of them. So no big deal. So I'm just going to get this lined up exactly where it needs to be. And then I'm going to line the ruler up with the edge. We'll just draw the line. And then 1/2 inch up from that line. The next one goes down. And actually, I'm not gonna worry about it. What I'm gonna do is, because it can be a little longer, it's not gonna hurt it to be a little longer. So I'm gonna fit this into the first space again. I'm going to trace it, and then we'll draw the line. Hi again, kitty. Hi again. How are you? All right, there we go. So now we have its general shape. What we have to do now is clean it up. This is a, you know, be careful moment. All right, so using the craft knife and not the cutter, not the rotary trimmer, because we need more precision than we can get with the rotary trimmer. I'm going to line my ruler up. Cut down from the center line. Okay, so I have that split there. Now I'm going to just rotate it. And do the same thing. Cut down from that line to the edge. Okay, so you can see we have that split there. Then, once again, cut down. All right, split there. This actually can come off. We don't need it. It just has our scraps. Recycle that. Just got to make our final cut here. Kitty. She's mad, so she's in the top of my closet knocking stuff on the floor right now. Cut down to that line. And then I'm just anywhere that I didn't cut all the way through. All right, so now we have this, which looks great. She's mad because I'm not paying attention to her. That's why. She's mad because I'm not paying attention. All right. So already this looks super cool. Remember, it's going to go here and create the frame for the two photos, and then we'll stamp here and here. But already, like, look at it. And then we have to trim it again, of course, but we'll get there. Before we trim it again, I want to ink everything so it is framed. So I'm going to start, I'm only going to ink the interior where I won't be able to reach it after it's stuck down. So I'm going to ink here, 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 and here. Remember that when you're working on something spindly, if you hold it here and here with your fingers and pull it taut, you won't have to worry about wrinkling or tearing it. Kitty. She ran away. Okay. All right, so now we just need to put tape on this. I'm going to start with 1/2-inch tape. And then I'm going to give it a trim. And up here, I don't know if you can see it, I have a little bit of the tape peeking over the edge. So I'm going to give that a trim so that I don't have any tape showing. Okay. Well, my big glass mat, that Caterpillar one, is probably like 12 by 24 or something like that. Yeah, it's 12 by 16. 12 by 16. The other one's like a 9-inch square, I think. All right, so now I'm just gonna make sure there's plenty of tape on it. I prefer a glass mat for any kind of detailed cutting, absolutely. If I'm just cutting a straight line, a self-healing mat like this one is fine. I don't get too, upset, or not upset, that's like such an exaggeration of whatever, I don't care, basically, it's fine. But if I'm doing any kind of precise cutting, I do want a glass mat, pretty much, yeah. And the main thing is, if you are curious as to why, is when you are cutting on a self-healing mat like this quilting mat that's on my desk all the time, you are cutting both the paper and the mat, so your knife digs in past the paper into the mat. Whereas on the glass mat, the glass resists, so you're only cutting the paper and much less pressure is needed, and you can be much more precise. Okay. Now, I'm going to peel all the tape from the big piece, but I'm going to leave the tape on the little spindly, skinny piece. I just stabbed myself with my scissors. All right, so I'm going to line up this corner and this corner. That's going to be my main concern. Okay. Then I'm going to peel this tape and press down. Like so. All right, so now we're going to cut any excess away. All right. So now I can ink around the remaining 3 edges. And then stamp, and we're done. And I'm actually going to go all the way around the whole thing. Why not? All right, now that I've done that, I'm gonna stamp in the 2 spaces. So we're gonna put our stamp here and here. And where I put stamps, you put photos, you know. All right, beautiful. So now we have this photo mat, which will hold 4 4x4 photos on the front and 2 4x6 photos on the back. And we've got another quilted element here. So we're gonna add that to the pile. So here's that. Now we're going to work on the middle-sized one, which is the one that holds the 4 4x6 photos inside, and we're going to decorate the front. So we are doing really well. We just need to find something really cool to put on the front. Okay. Alrighty, now let's start with our cards and such and see if something jumps out at us. And I mean, I may cheat and make something bigger than it is. Although okay, no, I'm not going to do that. All right, let's see. I'm going to cut out this. And let's use the big camera again. And we'll just cut out a few elements to make work. And history. Let's pull this. What else? Maybe this. Bring in some blue. All right. So that's a good start. Okay. So what I'm thinking is we're gonna build something that maybe looks, see, this is too big, I think, so we may end up going with that. All right, so we're gonna go with that. So now what we need to do is we need to find a piece of paper to set that all on top of that's gonna make sense, that's gonna look good. So we need to find a piece of paper that has enough okay, so let's see if we put it on something like this. Nope, nope, that's not gonna work. So I think this probably won't work either. Now maybe something like this will work better. I mean, it's a little on the busy side, but it's not terrible. I think what I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier is I'm actually going to glue these things to each other so that I can handle them as one piece, and that'll make it easier on me. So I'm going to cut everything out. Okay, and then I'm going to just ink the edges of each piece as I cut them out, and then I'll assemble them and I'll glue them all together so I can handle them as like one sticker. And if you struggle with, like, you know, keeping all your pieces together, we have one more mini page to work on, and then it's binding time. Speaking of the binding, my split decision sample was dropped on the floor and it hit on the spine and the spine tore. So I had to repair the spine while it was in the cover, and so I uploaded a video of me doing that to show you how you can repair and or reinforce a spine in an album that's already assembled if it tears. And then along with that, I also uploaded a video on how you can hedge your bets against that ever happening by reinforcing the spine with Tyvek. So there's 2 new videos in the Split Decision Album Basics Guide folder related to that. And I'll reinforce the spine in class. I normally skip that step because I'm trying to be fast. So I'll do it this time just so you can see it. And then we'll all sit there and watch Drew glue dry in real time, because that's always fun. But yeah, we have one more mini page. We have the final mini page, which has 6 inserts that we need to figure out. And then we have to do the binding and the covers. So we're not going to finish today, because even if I finish all these inserts this afternoon, which I'm pretty sure I will, I'm not sure we'll finish the mini page tonight. And even if we do finish the mini page tonight, you know, we'll still have the binding to go, and we'll be working on the binding and the cover next week. So the earliest we would finish this is the 23rd. And like, I mean, even if we had a catastrophe, I think we will be done with it this month for sure, even if we have a catastrophe. Melody says, when I try to create a single sticker from many, I struggle with composition. The sizes are wrong and the color combo is off. Well, what I'll say about the color combo is if you have access to the archives, you should watch my Color Theory 101 classes, which are some of the best classes I've ever done. And they explain how colors work. And then as far as composition, what I'll say is always, people, in my experience with helping people, usually people are trying to put things together that are too small. So, you know, if you have the choice between a sticker that you think is too big and you might want to look again at the sticker you think is too big. We'll make sure to have one of our fascinating discussions as the glue dries. There we go. So Fran says, hi, I'm still alive and I've been collecting roofing tins. Okay, so I now own 50, actually I think I have 60 pounds of roofing tins now, because the guy in one of the shipments where I ordered 20 pounds, he only sent me 10 and he felt bad about that. So then in the shipment to make up for it, he sent me 20, even though I asked him not to and said to only send me 10. But he ignored me, whatever. So now I have 60 pounds and they're all like, we left them in their padded mailers that he shipped them in. So we have this stack of padded mailers on the table with 60 pounds of roofing tins. And my sister came home and she's like, what is all of this? And I was like, it's cocaine. And she's like, how much cocaine is it? And I said, it's 50 pounds of cocaine. And she's like, can I have a pound of cocaine? She's like, what's that even worth? And I was like, I have no idea. So we had to Google it. So, but a pound of cocaine is worth like $135,000 in case you were curious. So we can add that to my questionable Google searches that the NSA is tracking. And that is if the cocaine's been cut 3 times. We found out. So I have no idea what a pound of uncut cocaine is worth. I think they just You just cut it and then you sell it. So, all right. So now when we're talking about composition, not cocaine, let me talk about a couple other things that can always help you get your composition right. All right. So do you see how many lines there are on this square? So there's 4 lines for the outside. There's 4 lines for the inside. And the more lines that I can cover with as little of this piece as I can to preserve as much of the place photo here, the better. So what I want to do is I want to move this so that I can find a natural corner on this where the more curved lines of this piece are going to cut away the straight lines of this piece. Okay. So see how different it is from this, where I preserve all of those lines, to this where I don't. And that's not a big difference in terms of how much of this piece is covered by this piece. It's not about covering a lot of this piece or a certain amount of this piece. It's about covering the right parts. So again, there's not a big difference between this and this. That's not a big difference, but it's a big difference visually. Okay. All right. This is does that make sense? All right. So now, where would we put this? Well, if we can see this gap here, so see how, because the camera comes a little to the left, all right, now there's a gap, this little space in between them, right there, there's a gap. And it looks like a gap because the camera's coming out, okay, because the camera's pointing here. So we have this sort of space that's trapped there between, it's trapped in this little triangle, okay. That's what we want to eliminate. We want to get rid of that. And so when we put this down, we want to put it somewhere where we're going to eliminate that. So let's talk about where would I put this, okay. So when I put this here, let's say I put this here, all right. Well, I still see this corner, and now that's awkward to me. And now I have another little corner of trapped space. So I want to make sure I at least get rid of that corner, okay. I want to at least make sure that corner is covered. See how much better now it looks that we don't see that corner and we have this more organic edge to this piece of torn paper. But what's the problem with this one? The problem is I'm covering the lens of the camera, so it's not immediately obvious what this object is. Okay, so that's another mistake that I can fix. There's 2 ways I can fix it. I can pull this up and to the side like so, but then I expose a little bit of my piece. And it's pretty wide now. Okay, it's pretty wide. In fact, it's wide enough that it doesn't look like it's in balance. So what we want to do then is pull it down a little bit. All right. So again, pull it down enough that we can see that this is a lens. We don't have to see the whole lens. Why don't we have to see the whole lens? We don't have to see the whole lens because even just seeing part of it, now I know that's a lens. Now I know that's a camera. It doesn't show me that this is a camera anymore if I pull it down so I can see the whole lens, and then I gain a crack. Now I have another gap that's awkward that I don't like. Whereas if I just shave the slightest bit off that lens, just the slightest bit, you still know it's a lens. You still know this is a camera. Now everything, the shape is in balance and all of the gaps are covered. And now it's one piece. Now it's one piece. So if I wanted to add even more stuff to it, where would I do it? Here, I can add something here if I want to. Like if I wanted to bring color into it, I could stick a piece of paper there. And then here, I have a space that I don't have to fill in. But if I wanted to, this is where this area, this triangle right here, see this triangle formed? That's an area where I could fill in as well. If I was feeling bad about this. I'm not feeling bad about this though. Okay? But like, let's just see. This is the same 3 elements. They're not that far apart. But what a difference it makes to have this gap here. Okay, so be on the lookout for, are there lines that are intersecting, that you can put things at the intersection of lines. So anytime you can put something at the intersection of lines, do it. So here. And then anytime you can fill in a gap, do it. And don't worry about perfectly preserving every single element of the camera or the Polaroid or whatever. You know, you can if you want to, but you don't have to. Now, another solution is maybe capture everyday moments would work better if it was smaller. Okay? So just make it smaller. Now I see even more of the lens. I don't see the whole lens. I'm still covering part of the lens up, but I see even more of the lens. Now it looks even more like a camera, but I'm still not sticking so far out that this looks awkward and weird. And I'm still eliminating one of the lines by putting it here. Now I'm going to show you, let's say I put it here and I cover up this line instead. All right. What's the problem? Now this is back, this problem piece here. And I just want you to see how much this piece being right here throws off the whole thing. All right. So compare this, just in your mind, to this. And what a difference it makes in the final piece. Okay, so that's what you look for when you're creating these clusters. That's what you look for. Now you can do things like, you could stick a paper clip on the capture everyday moments, like a tiny Tim Holtz paper clip. I have some on my desk, so let's go ahead and do it. And I'm going to want to stick it so that it looks like it's around, well, actually, let's do this. Let's start sticking these things together, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the top. So I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to take my glue, and I'm gonna, and also if you need to, if you feel you need to, take a picture of it for reference so that you know exactly where you want to put everything. Press it into place. And now I'm just going to stick my glue in there and press that into place. And I'm just going to press it into place with my apron so that I get the glue up where there's extra glue. Okay. And then I can clean it up on the back. All right. Let me clean up this glue so I don't end up with sticky mat again. Okay. Now, I can take my little paper clip and I can stick it so it looks like the Capture Everyday Moments is paper clipped to the photo frame. Okay? So that adds just another little cutesy element. And I'm going to put tape on the back. Well, do I want to put tape on the back or... Okay, so now that we have this all one piece, we're going to put other pieces behind it and just kind of say, do we like it? Yes, no. This is pretty cute, actually, on the film. So let's go ahead and cut the film. And I'm going to keep it down towards the bottom. The reason being that this fades from lighter to darker towards the bottom. And these pieces are darker. They are heavier to your eye, especially because of the black here and the black here. And if you have a choice between putting heavier things towards the bottom of a page and heavier things towards the top of the page, always go for towards the bottom, because that just visually it makes more sense to your eye. All right. So there you go. There's a little composition lesson. Yes, I'll show it to you at the top and at the bottom. Okay. So here it is at the bottom. Okay. And then here, let me straighten it. And then here it is at the top. Okay. It's not like it looks terrible. It doesn't look terrible. Okay. But it does look better down here. Just a little bit. All right. And then, like I said, here where you can see this is the gap where I said if you want to add another thing to this cluster, this is where you would put it. Okay. You would put it right there. So let me just grab something to show you how putting something there. Let me just find a little element I can toss in there. Where's my bag of cards? Oh, it's over here. Okay. Or like we could put this other photo camera back there. You could cut out this other camera, add it with the little film strip. Of course, that would create this little gap here. So it's all about trying to balance. You know, whenever you add stuff. Yes, having at the top, exactly. Because of because in reality, heavier things are lower to the ground and lighter things are heavier, meaning things that weigh more. Okay. When we talk about elements, we talk about in graphic design or in art or composition, all elements have visual weight, And what that is referencing is how heavy does something read to the brain based on its look. And typically things that are darker have more visual weight than things that are lighter. And typically things that are larger have more visual weight than things that are smaller, essentially. So it's what you would expect it to be. It's, you know, in like reality. All right. So now I'm just going to glue this down. Now that I've inked this. And I'm going to use liquid glue because this is going in a pocket. That's why. So I want to make sure that all of my little edges are pressed down as well as they can be. And when I've got it pressed into place where I want it, I'm going to just, what made me decide to stop here? It's going in a pocket. I don't really want to over embellish things that are going in pockets. One, because they're going in pockets, so you know you don't want layer after layer after layer after layer, just as a practical matter. And then another thing is, if I'm going to heavily embellish something, it's better to heavily embellish something on the front of something where you're going to see it more. But yes, it is going to boil down to personal preference. Some people, you know, they don't want to stop until the piece weighs 5 pounds, and that's totally fine, you know. Why not? Do what you like. But this is more of a practical matter because we're working within an envelope. Okay? That's all. And yeah, the white piece looked nice, and the little camera, and we could have filled in that corner if we wanted to. We still can, because you can sometimes cheat it and make it look like things are behind things that aren't, just by cutting them flush with them. All right, so now I'm just going to put tape on the back. And this is, we'll just pick something to go on the back of it and it'll be ready to go. Bye, Mary. All right. How fun. We are learning so much stuff today. So good question, Melody. Or Melanie. Or no, it was Melody. Oh my gosh. Okay. Good questions, everyone. Good questions, everyone. All right, check to make sure this is right side up still. It is. So now I'm going to stick this down. All right, so that's the front of it. There's the inside, so now we just need to put a piece on the back. All right, so I'm just looking for a piece of paper to put on the back. I want to keep anything with like images like this intact until the bitter end. So I'm going to skip over those papers. Anything that's got kind of corner images we may want to use on the last page. Like this one and this one. All right. Okay, so now let's look at these and ask which one do we want to use? And I kind of want to use this because we do have that Polaroid on the front. So let's just go ahead and do that. That'll be exciting looking. All right. So I'm just going to cut that. Again, I've been using the backs plain. You can put photo mats on the back. You can decorate the backs, whatever you want to do. It's up to you because it's your book and you can customize it to your own taste. All right. There we go. We did save papers for the covers. I'll pull them out to show you which ones. We saved the, well, we're going to do the cover out of the flag blue. So, and then we're going to cut this down and glue it on top. So we're not going to wrap the book in this, but we're going to put it on the front and back cover. And then this is the inside of the front and back cover is this aperture. And then we're going to use the flag blue cardstock for the rest. And actually, do we not have, oh, craft text spine. Cool. So we're doing an external spine. So we don't need a piece of pattern paper for the spine. Oh, look, there's a huge piece of craft text right next to that bag. So I already cut the craft text. Look how prepared I am. But yeah, I do always recommend when you start a project to pull your paper for the outside of your front and back cover, the inside of your front and back cover, and your spine if you're doing an internal spine. That way you don't accidentally use them and then get to the end of your book and you don't have two of anything. Which I don't have two of anything left, aside from those sheets that I pulled. So if I were to try and put the cover together now, it would be a disaster. Just another thing to mention is right now I shared the link to the Facebook group, and if you need a link to the Facebook group, there's a one in this video's description if you're watching live on YouTube right now. If not, you can go to facebook.com/groups/Kathryn's Scrappers. Hello, Cherie. How are you? Welcome. And Gretchen is selling a bunch of her stamps in stamp bundles, and the proceeds are going to Australian wildlife. So go and check out her stamps. Like I said, I shared it to the group because it is going, the money is going to a good place. So check out the Facebook group for her post if you're watching in January 2020. You know, if you're watching this in the archives in June, then it's probably not still up. So all right, so just make sure everything's right side up. All right. So we've got the medium size not matte, whatever this is, fold insert finished, and now we just have to work on the small insert. All right. My eye is itching, but I remembered at the last second that I petted the cat, so I'm not going to scratch it. All right, so I like this camera, so I'm going to use it on this last piece. I'm probably going to frame it out in blue, in the flag blue, and I want it to go on something colorful. So let me get a scrap of the flag blue, and then let's look at all of our scraps and see if we see something that's got some nice yellow in it. Right off the bat, I see this as a possibility, although I don't think we'll use it because it's a, I don't know, it's a little bit busier than what I want right now. So let's see about paper that hasn't been cut yet, since we don't need to be stingy anymore because we are at the end. All right, so I think I'm going to use the admit one. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to ink around the edges of the card itself, stick it to the mat, and this card is a 3x4 card, so I'm going to cut the mat to 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 because I don't want it to have a thick mat. I just want it to have a thin mat. All right, so cutting the mat down. Then we're gonna tape and stick and then tape. Yeah, I keep looking up to check if I'm still recording because I forgot last week. So if you have any, and then I requested from my library the ebook of the next book in the lunar cycle, which is the name of the series that Cinder is the first book of. So even, because I am kind of curious, but there's like a ton of those books. I did probably blow a raspberry. It's not like I've never blown a raspberry on the show before. I don't remember doing it specifically, but that doesn't mean I didn't do it. So I did order the next book, but they said it's going to be 7 weeks, about 7 weeks before the audio, before the ebook is available. So it's going to be a while, I think, before I know what happens next. But my general understanding is that the unifying theme of the entire series will be the Moon-Earth conflict, and that each book will retell a new fairy tale. So like, I think, you know, one of them will be Rapunzel for sure, because Cinder meets that Rapunzel character clearly in the first book. As long as no bird got in. There are no birds. All right. So now I need to cut the tickets to fit this. And I know it's 4 1/4. The question is how tall? 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. And I'm going to use this on both the front and the back. So I'm going to cut 2 of these. All right, so now I just need a scrap to go at the top and the bottom on the inside. And I think I'll use this newspaper. All right. So we've got all our elements here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ink the tickets and put tape on the backs, and then we'll work on the strips. So, but so yeah, it will be, and it's if I have to wait for each book for 7 weeks, it's gonna take a long time. Maybe I should request them 2 at a time. Maybe I'll check when the next one will be available. If you are wondering how to get ebooks from your library, check to see if your library participates in Overdrive or a similar program, which is ebooks for libraries. And you just like, I use Libby, which is Overdrive, the name of the Overdrive app. And you just put in your library card, and if your system participates, you can check out books against your library card for 14 days. Well, that varies by library system. In my library system, it's 14 days, but I think it can be up to 21 depending on your system, and as low as 7. And you just request it through the Libby app, and then the Libby app sends you a notification when it's available. And if you want to read it, it'll say, do you want to read this on Kindle, or do you want to read it on Android? And then, or I guess if you're on Apple, it would probably say something else. And if you choose Kindle, it takes you to the store page on Amazon, and the buy button will be replaced with a borrow from library button. And then you just download it like normal. So it's really simple. You can get the Hungarian version of Cinder. I don't know how useful that's going to be. I mean, if you speak Hungarian, it'll probably be very useful. Molly says I have a quilt book out of checked out from my library on Overdrive right now. Yeah, you can get all kinds of stuff. And there are other systems like Hoopla and RB Digital are two other ones. Oh, Flipster for magazines. So there's a bunch of different services. So like I said, if you haven't been to your library in a while, or you don't know what the options are at your library other than just going in and physically checking out books, it's worth a trip, or to check their website even to find out, because you might be pleasantly surprised. Okay. Now with this one, I'm not trying to center it top to bottom so much as I want to begin and end on the same, on this dark blue color. So that's what I'm focusing on. All right. So now we just need to make 1-inch strips to go on the inside. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut them into 4 1/4-inch strips. And then I'm going to take 1 inch off the bottom of each one and put them at the bottom of each photo mat. Okay, so these two I'm going to ink and stick down, then I'm going to cut the two for the top and ink and stick those down. And I'm not going to ink on the edge that's going to touch the photo mat because the photo mat's not inked. And I'm just going to use ATG for this because it's inside a pocket, so I don't have to worry about it coming off. So yeah, my goal in 2020 is to, like I said, read 48 books that I already own or that will challenge me in some way and without spending any money on books. Because books are one thing where, you know, I've talked about this on the show before, but I like to, you know, I constantly am going through my stuff and thinking, what can I pass on to someone else? And books are something that often escapes that. Like, I don't take a serious look at my books and ask myself if this is something that I'm really, like a collection I'm really using, or if I just like the way it looks to have, you know, books on a shelf, which isn't wrong. But, you know, for me, we try to keep stuff around if it has a potential to be used, you know. And every time we go through our house to find stuff to give away, you know, I find more stuff that it's like, no, I don't really use this. I don't really, it would be better if someone else were to have it than me. And this last time that we did it, I actually tackled books, and I went through my books and was like, okay, be honest. So I'm trying to read more and also not spend money. So we'll see how we go. But books are definitely a weakness. But just like, and I like, you know, being in a bookstore and looking at books and holding books and things like that, but I don't read paper books anymore. Not really. And the reason why is because Mr. Lifeguard and I go to bed at the same time, but we don't go to sleep at the same time. I stay up later, and I stay up later reading. And back when I read paper books, that would bother him because I would have to have a light source. But a few years ago, when I got a Kindle Paperwhite, it was about 5 years now. It totally changed because the light on the Kindle doesn't bother him, and he goes right to sleep. So, not all of them. Priya said, do you think you would get to a point where all your physical books would be replaced by ebooks? I don't think so, because some of my books, the actual physical book has a sentimental value beyond the words contained within. And those are the books that I kept for the most part. So like my first printing of the Snow Queen that I have, even if I were to buy the Snow Queen, which I probably will eventually one day buy the Snow Queen by Joan D. Vinge, you know, I would probably still keep that one because I very specifically remember I bought it before we went on a vacation as a family, and my sister ran out of whatever she was reading, and so I lent it to her for an afternoon while I was doing something else, and then we spent the rest of that family vacation stealing it from each other and fighting over who would get to read it. So like I would never get rid of that book, even if I had a copy of that book electronically so that I could reread it easily. And there are other books like that. Like my copy of The Girl of the Limberlost, and I read that book like 100 times when I was younger, and I dropped it in a pool, and then, but I still have it, the one that was dropped in a pool. So there's a few books that will be kept for that, but ultimately I would like to have no books other than ones that, like, again, because I don't use them. Like, if I read them and reread them, you know, in paper, I would have no problem having 12 feet of bookshelves or an entire room that was a library. But I'm not going to hoard them for myself and not utilize them when someone else could have the pleasure of reading them. Only because it would be hoarding for me, because I wouldn't be using them. I wouldn't be reading them. So, I mean, I would feel that for myself it would be hoarding. Which again, is not to say that it is always hoarding to save books, or that for me it would always be hoarding to save books. Because if I was rereading them all the time, then it wouldn't be. Well, I have Liz, and then I have Mr. Lifeguard, and we are on a Google Play Family, and what the way that works is anytime anyone buys a book through Google Play Books, then everyone in the family gets it. So the three of us are on Google Play Family. That's one way we share. And then we're also in Amazon Prime Household. Same thing. So anyone who buys a book, everyone else gets a copy of it in their library. Now, we can't all read the same book at the same time. Only one person can read it at a time, but it's not really a big deal. We all have plenty of books, so that we don't fight. And then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We can add one more person to my Google Play family, and I keep meaning to talk to my brother about it, and I keep forgetting, so maybe I'll do that right after the show. All right. We have finished all the inserts for this folder, or this envelope. So that'll be the end of envelope E3. So, all right, let's just take a look. So we've got the large insert, which has the quilt on the front and the paper on the back, and the enlarged photo on the front. It'll hold a 5x7 photo, room for journaling, and 4 photos on the inside. Then we have the quad folio, or not the quad folio, the quad Polaroid, and on the back the photo mat with the quilt and room for 2 photos. Then we have the insert that holds 4 4x6 photos with our embellishments on the front and our matching pattern on the back. And then the one we just did, click, click, another camera. And we've got the newsprint on the inside. So all of these now can go into this envelope. Oh, how to share physical books. I mean, obviously you just hand it to someone that you want to share it with. But if it's more about everyone wanting to read the same book at the same time, I would say just get 2 copies from the library. That way you don't have to fight. Okay, so this will be added to our bag of pages now. And tonight when we come back, we will work on the final page, which is one of the mini pages. And so we've got 1, 2, 3 pockets to make inserts for, or multiple bookmarks is a good, that's good. Everyone has a designated bookmark. So we have 1, 2, 3 pockets on the front to make inserts for, and then we have the pocket that goes on the back, which I believe maybe we already made. Yes, I even wrote myself a note on how to do the on how to do the frame. So we'll do another frame on the inside of this. All right. So that's what we'll work on tonight. And then depending on how that goes, we'll either start preparing for the binding, do the binding if we have time. And if we don't, you know, maybe we'll start by covering the, starting the cover and getting that all ready. So I will be back at 9 p.m. Eastern USA time, which is 5 hours from now. So whatever time it is where you are now, I'll be back in 5 hours. And we will finish, certainly I feel like we will finish that page. Although now that I've said that I feel like we'll finish that page, we probably won't. If you are headed to bed or headed to dinner, have a wonderful evening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Everyone else, I'll see you later tonight. Be sure to check the video description for links to the Facebook group, to the archives, and to the supplies that I use. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.